Senator Ron Johnson was not going to let Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen get away with her lies about the Biden administration's excessive spending.
President Biden came into office. He has yet to produce a budget where he proposed a deficit less than $1.3 trillion. So we went from President Trump's budget in fiscal year 2021 of $5.6 trillion. A year later, President Biden projected a 10-year deficit of $14.5 trillion. The following year, another $14.4 trillion. Last year's budget, he was projecting $17 trillion of 10-year cumulative deficit. This budget now is $16.3 trillion. Now, I see President Biden's budget going up $8 trillion over Trump's, then going up another $3 trillion over his own budget, and now coming down $1 trillion less than not even $1 trillion, about $700 billion less. Where do you come up with saving $3 trillion in deficit?
Well, that's a straightforward calculation, which compares the budget that he's proposed with the baseline that would exist if current law continues.
Again, the baseline he came in with was $5.6 trillion. He bumped that baseline to $14.5 trillion, maintained the $14.5 trillion, bumped that to $17 trillion, so he increased it $3 trillion. I guess brought it down $700 billion. Again, where do you get a $3 trillion reduction in deficit other than just making it up, pulling it out of thin air, which is what you've done?
Well, the president is not pulling it out of thin air. He's proposed a number of savings.
Where's the calculation? Tell me how you calculate a $3 trillion decrease in the deficit when you go from $5.6 trillion to 14.5, 17, and now 16. Where's a $3 trillion reduction deficit ever shown in the president's own budgets?
Well, I think if you look at the budget and you examine the tables, the table
I'm looking at the budget. I got the numbers here. I'm an accountant.
I do too.
I can do the math.
Table S3 gives the budget baseline, and then the table S4 gives the proposed budget, and you compare those two, and you'll see exactly where these numbers come from.
Provide me that calculation, please. Okay, I'd like to see that because I'm giving the numbers here, so I'd appreciate that calculation. Let me ask you a question. Do you know how much the federal government spent in total only 4 years ago in fiscal year 2019?
Well, that was pre-pandemic.
I realize that.
I don't have that number.
All right, so this is what's going on here, and this is what you see time after time after time when you look at when these Biden administration officials are questioned about these things, particularly in this case, she's talking about the budget. Now, Yellen is basically lying through her teeth and saying that the excessive, inordinate amounts of spending that the Biden administration wants to do more of, mind you, and this is after we just passed another ridiculous $1.2 trillion bill full of absolute pork to quote-unquote keep the government open. It's completely ridiculous when you start paying attention to these things. But what she wants to do is she's using these charts and these data sets and all of these other things that come from their offices. They employ staffs of paper-pushing bureaucrats, which, by the way, are paid with your and my taxpayer money to create these flowcharts and these things that they can reference to in order to fit their agenda. And the agenda in this case is trying to pretend as if another massive spending bill from the Biden administration is going to somehow reduce the deficit, which fundamentally, like, I'm no PhD in economics, but that makes absolutely zero sense. And of course it makes zero sense. They know that it's not true. And they are there to peddle lies to the American people about this excessive spending. That is what makes it so annoying. That is what makes it so infuriating when you watch these things day in and day out. You see people absolutely lying. And then also, you see questioning like this, and that's great. And it's great seeing Janet Yellen's foot held to the fire. But at a certain point, they are not stopping any of this stuff from getting done.